Today, Dallas Mavericks fans and MFFLs all around. The Dallas Mavericks regular season has officially wrapped up with the final record of 50-32. The Dallas Mavericks now hold and solidly hold the top five seed, I guess you want to say, and we will be facing off against the LA Clippers. We know very well about the LA Clippers over, I think this is going to be the third time Luka Doncic has faced them in the postseason now, so we'll see if this is the team that can finally get the job done. I feel like this is the perfect team built around the two stars, obviously Luka Doncic, who will be having the scoring title, who will be the winner of the scoring title this year. We do already know 33.9 points per game, I believe, by 9 rebounds, over 9 assists. We're talking about a guy that pretty much did everything for this team, especially earlier on before the trades, before Kyrie Irving was able to be fully healthy, pretty much, I guess you want to say, predominantly for the remainder of the season. We were dealing with injuries throughout the earlier part of the season, and not having guys like Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington on the original roster. Luka Doncic was having to carry a lot of that load, and I feel like a lot of that got lost in the context of what we're talking about, the Dallas Mavericks final record, and still finding themselves about 6-7 games out of first place. Although, like I said, that's not too bad when you're basing off, like I said, the context, which when we don't have to get into the MVP talks. Luka Doncic, obviously, and this to me personally, I'm trying to keep all biases out of it, but I don't see how Luka Doncic could not have been your MVP of this NBA regular season. But we do know at the end of the day, it's about narrative. It's about the national media. A lot of these guys don't even pay attention to actual games. They watch highlights. They kind of watch things here and there in a couple game spans, I guess. And sometimes, again, that's obviously going to leave a lot of context out. So if we're going to pretty much say that Luka Doncic should be MVP, at the end of the day, I want him to be holding that Finals MVP trophy, and the team holding that championship trophy, the Larry O'Brien. So we'll see exactly how this plays out when it comes to the MVP voting, where Luka Doncic ends up, second, third, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the Dallas Mavericks have much bigger goals, and that's winning a championship. You have a Kyrie Irving, a guy that averaged over 25 points a game, about 5 assists, 5 rebounds. This is a guy that pretty much showed all that stuff, all the national media. We're talking about, obviously, last year when the Dallas Mavericks make the trade with the Brooklyn Nets to bring Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. You had lots of people saying the Dallas Mavericks are not going to be able to win. This is not going to be a duo that can play off one another. Obviously, I'm going to say personally, this is obviously one of the opinions when you're looking at a guy like LeBron James says all the time. He sees so much of Luka Doncic's game. People like to get lazy and use the James Harden comparison, and I feel like that is so much is underselling what Luka Doncic does. Obviously, we do know he's not a defensive major presence, but what we saw this year was Luka Doncic has stepped up defensively, and we're talking about just body positioning. The end of the day, team defense to me is the most overall thing. I don't need a guy that's like in a Luka Doncic, I guess, type build. And the way that he pretty much controls this entire team in offense, I don't need Luka Doncic to be a shutdown, lockdown defender. What I need him to be is just be able to be useful on the defensive end. And he showed that many times. This year, I'm going to say he got much better just playing the lanes. We're talking about a guy that averaged over 1 steal a game. This is a guy, Luka Doncic, just be able to show just the effort. That's the number one thing. I guess some people would be able to criticize him over these the years prior to this one. Sometimes it felt like effort. And at the end of the day, you're also kind of using Luka Doncic does so much offensively for this team. How much can he actually give on the defensive side? But at the end of the day, when you're a superstar player, people are going to be looking at you to be able to lead by example. And I feel like Luka Doncic stepped up majorly, playing both sides of the ball, especially more so defensively this year. So this is going to be a team that's going to be very exciting going to the postseason. I'm not scared of anybody. We will be facing off against the 4 seed LA Clippers again this year. And that, I guess you're going to say, this is probably finally the best chance the Dallas Mavericks have shown to be able to knock those guys off and continue on our journey to hopefully hoisting that Larry O'Brien trophy. But this is going to be a perfect situation. Let's talk about just exactly some of the aspects of this season going into the postseason. In about 58 games, this year, Kyrie Irving averaging about 25.6 points per game, about 5 rebounds, 5.2 assists. This is, again, the second, I guess you're going to say, a perfect guy that's going to help lead this team going to the postseason. I started to speak about, but I did not finish my point. We're talking about LeBron James. Pretty much says he sees so much of himself in Luka Doncic, and the conversation was, can Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving play off one another? Obviously, this is a guy, Kyrie Irving is not scared to take any shot on the court. If it's in his range, if he's on the court, I'm going to say pretty much, I feel like it's in his range when Kyrie Irving is rolling. And this is the perfect, I guess you want to say, Robin, Batman. We obviously heard about pretty much the way Luka Luka Doncic said he feels like Kyrie Irving is his Batman. So we'll kind of see exactly how that dynamic plays out in the postseason. But Kyrie Irving to me is going to be the perfect number 2 or just that 1B type option when it comes to leading this offense, especially. But Kyrie Irving's leadership to me, that's one of the biggest things I guess I noticed more so in this season. Especially we can talk about pretty much some of these games. Look at that ugly game we had against the Houston Rockets, having to come make that major comeback. And after the game was solidified, you see Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic hugging it out. But the rest of the guys, Kyrie Irving telling the rest of the guys, come on in here and let's show some each other love, because again, this is a team effort. We all put in what we want to out of it, and we will get the results that we're looking for. So I'm gonna say now, Kyrie Irving, to me, he's probably the biggest thing to keep an eye on. Obviously, to me, it's being lazy, maybe sound lazy, but again, I think Kyrie Irving's gonna be the biggest thing to keep an eye on in the postseason, because what we're gonna be asking from Luka Doncic is to him just be regular Luka Doncic. This is a 30+ per game scorer in the postseason. We're talking about a guy dang near pretty much a triple-double average in the postseason in Luka Doncic's career. This is not a small sample size at this point. So this is what Luka Doncic does. If we're going to be able to get standard Luka Doncic in the postseason, what we're going to get from the rest of the guys is going to be major. And if Kyrie Irving can just be himself, a big shot maker, a guy that's going to be aggressive and hold other guys accountable, because again, he does have championship history. He's won an NBA championship, obviously, with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016. And we're talking about hitting probably, arguably, the biggest, if not just one of the biggest shots in NBA history, finals history, but just NBA history in general. Kyrie Irving is a guy that you can count on in these major moments, these clutch moments, and that's a guy we're going to be able to hang our hat on going into the postseason. Obviously, we're talking about adding in other guys, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford, to me, obviously going into the postseason, this is going to be a guy that we now can also hang our hat on when it comes to defensive presence. Obviously, we want to get Derek Lively back. And real quick, prayers are definitely going out for Derek Lively, because again, he unfortunately lost his mother over this last week. So we're now looking to see a guy like that be able to find himself back in the mix, returning from an injury, but also having to deal with the emotional aspect of something like that is very heartbreaking just to hear. But hopefully he's able to get his head where it needs to be and be able to contribute. But at the end of the day, there are things much more important than the game of basketball. But if we are able to get a guy like Derek Lively, in addition to what Daniel Gafford is going to bring, this team is going to be very dangerous. So Daniel Gafford, to me, is going to be that guy that you're already going to have. Now, since he's moved into the starting lineup, I believe the Dallas Mavericks are 17-1, something like that, somewhere around there. That is nothing to sneeze at. I don't care if you're talking about who the opponents are. We've shown, especially, just get into some of those games we saw against the Denver Nuggets. Since Daniel Gafford has joined this team, the Oklahoma City Thunder previously before that, I believe that's probably the first major game we saw Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington with this team. Daniel Gafford, just a defensive presence, that intensity and that ferociousness that he plays with. To me, that's one of those trickle-down effect, domino effect type energies that he does bring to this team. Obviously, also PJ Washington, that's a guy that just plays hard-nosed basketball. He does what we need him to do. Of course, we want him to be able to contribute offensively, and hopefully he's able to show a little bit more consistency on that side of the ball in the postseason. But one thing you have gotten, and you've gotten pretty much consistently from PJ Washington, has been lockdown defense. Not just good defense, not solid defense. I'm talking lockdown defense. And this is a guy, if he was with this team throughout the entire year, we're talking about a guy that, to me, in my personal opinion, we're looking at easily. I'm talking about a first-team All-NBA defensive team type selection. Derrick Jones Jr., again, nothing to sneeze at when it comes to just the length and the athleticism that he has. These both are guys, Derrick Jones Jr. and a PJ Washington, guys that are more versatile. They're able to get to the basket here and there. We've seen PJ Washington utilize that floater a little bit more going into, I guess you want to say over the last I guess you want to say the remaining games of this season, over the last couple weeks, and a few weeks, I guess you'll say, you've seen PJ Washington be able to utilize that floater a little bit more. And Derrick Jones Jr., again, this is a guy who has shown a little bit more of improved ability of knocking down that outside jumper, that three-point ball, because you're going to get many of these playing with Luka and Kyrie. Obviously, we're talking about the driving kicks, just the gravity that those two playmakers have. Speaking about Luka and Kyrie, you're going to get so many open shots. So PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., if they can knock down those open threes just at a solid rate, the Dallas Mavericks are going to be so dangerous. But what they have brought defensively, that's what we are pretty much going to be able to hang our hat on. And I'm talking about PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., and a Daniel Gafford. Those three guys alone have improved this defense crazy amounts, and to me, I'm going to just be excited to see where this goes. Against the LA Clippers, you do know the firepower they do have. They do have some aging veterans. We're talking about some future Hall of Famers, obviously, and a Russell Westbrook, who pretty much, I'm going to say for the most part, comes off the bench for the LA Clippers, but then you're looking at James Harden, you're looking at Paul George, and also you're looking at Kawhi Leonard, who is still kind of up in the air. We'll see exactly how his injury, his knee, I believe, is feeling going into this series. If he's able to come back for game one, able to come back for the series, we'll see. But if we're going to say that they have a solidly healthy, I guess, speaking about the LA Clippers, solidly healthy team. The Dallas Mavericks defensive presence is going to pay major dividends. We're going to be looking to keep pressure on guys like a Paul George. I can see a guy like PJ Washington being out there on a guy like maybe like a Kawhi Leonard, because to me, Kawhi Leonard, if he's coming back healthy, that's a guy you're really going to want to see being able to be slowed down a little bit, because James Harden, we do know if he's rolling, and you've seen some up and down moments, but if you see James Harden really rolling, that is going to be a dangerous team. So the Mavericks, we can't come in there sneezing at the LA Clippers and saying we finally have figured them out. We've seen Luka Doncic pretty much with much weaker teams take them to 6-7 games. But if you're going in there and going to be ready and focused, and that's not even adding in guys, again, like Derek Lively, to me, is going to be the future of this center position for the Dallas Mavericks. But again, you can bring him along slowly. I guess you want to say just more cautiously, because you do have a Daniel Gafford. You're going to be able to kind of take your time a little bit more with a Derek Lively who just turned 20 years old. And also adding in an extra ball handler off the bench. We're talking about Dante Exum, a guy who is shown to play nice, solid defense. A guy that's also going to be just the extra playmaker and just show. And again, I'm going to say Dante Exum, what he's shown this year, and I guess you can say obviously, he has shown that he's become a much better outside shooter, just more consistent. You're looking at a guy like Dante Exum, pretty much the way he breaks down defense at certain points. I think that doesn't get talked about as much as it probably should. When Luka and Kyrie are off the court, or they're on the court, one of them's on the court, whatever the situation is, you've seen Dante Exum just be able to control the offense a little bit more with his own playmaking abilities. And I feel like this is something that Dallas Mavericks are going to have to utilize also as well in the postseason. So getting guys like Josh Green back, who just now returned from injury. Jaden Hardy, we'll see exactly what his role is in the postseason, because we can kind of talk about the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was an ugly game. I believe the Mavericks lost about 40, 50 points, something like that. It was a game I kind of tried to stay tapped into, I guess you want to say, a little bit. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 8 rotational players were not even playing in this game. I believe Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, those are a couple guys. Jaden Hardy played big minutes yesterday, but more so especially, I'm going to say Josh Green. It's going to be very interesting to see how exactly Jason Kidd uses him, because we have started to see this team kind of find their footing, even in the midst of Josh Green being out of the rotation a little bit with some injuries. We're going to ask how much Josh Green is actually going to get playing time, how much playing time he's going to get. I feel like obviously he's a spark type player, very energetic type player, and he can make some plays, and obviously he can knock down the three-point ball at a much more consistent rate than we've seen over the last couple of years from Josh Green. So we'll see exactly what his role is, but when you're adding in some of those other guys, again, who did not play yesterday, this Dallas Mavericks team, I don't care about that game. This, to me, the biggest thing you're talking about going to the playoffs, you want Luka Doncic healthy, you want Kyrie Irving healthy, the Daniel Gaffords, the PJ Washingtons, the Derrick Jones Jr., who we saw banging showed up a little bit in that, his arm up a little bit in that Miami Heat game. These are just some guys. Derek Lively, like I said, Dante Exum. We'll see exactly how the rest of the rotation is going to be utilized. But when we're talking about the top 8 guys, top 10 guys, I feel like this rotation this year is going to be very, I guess you want to say solidly deep, maybe 10 deep, because you are adding in Tim Hardaway Jr., who could find himself to be an X factor in certain games if he's going to stay within the offense. That's the biggest thing. You want to see Tim Hardaway Jr. not play himself out of the offense, because sometimes that's when the Dallas Mavericks get in trouble. If he's rolling, he can be one of those X factors, and I truly believe that. So we'll see, because also, to me personally, this offseason is going to be very big. I'm not going to jump into all that right now, but it's going to be very interesting to see how exactly Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, the Jaden Hardys are going to possibly be used to bring in another piece or two, because when you're looking at a guy like Omax Prosper, who saw a little bit more of an uptick in his playing time yesterday, I believe playing about 35, 37 minutes, something like that yesterday. This is a guy who still has something to work on, but if he's going to be a very vital piece to this rotation next year, I truly do believe that. Maybe he could fill in for a guy like Josh Green if we find it, looking around and kick around for another, maybe a real solidly, I guess you want to say a solid piece as a third option, scoring wise, maybe more consistently. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see exactly how that plays out. But as of right now, we do have a very deep rotation going into this first round series against the LA Clippers, and I'm very excited to see how exactly some of these guys are going to be used. Look at exactly what we're talking about when it comes to a guy like Jason Kidd. I've been very critical of Jason Kidd, and I'm still not completely into the mode of just completely piling a bunch of praise and heaping praise on Jason Kidd. But I will give credit. This is now the second 50-win season in 3 years, and we're talking about that's coming off of a couple years ago in the Western Conference Finals trip that we made. We're now going to be able to see if Jason Kidd has improved, if he's gotten better with in-game adjustments, with knowing when to call timeouts and break momentum, because this is the postseason. postseason. Every little mistake matters because you never know what can, I guess, tilt one game in a different direction. And at the end of the day, sometimes playoff series, will turn into big momentum games. So we'll see exactly how this plays out. But I will give Jason Kidd some credit for holding this thing together as much. Like I said, we have had so many injuries. We're talking about Kyrie Irving missing 22, 23 plus games. We're talking about a guy like Derek Lively who missed so many games this year. We're talking about, and this is early on in the season before we added these new pieces. So we couldn't afford to really lose anybody like we were losing, which is why I say, when you're talking about Dante Exums, these type guys, Luka Doncic did so much to help keep this team afloat that doesn't get talked about. But at the end of the day, I just want to see a winning championship rotation, and I want to see our head coach, Jason Kidd, be able to put guys in the right places and know exactly when to hit the button on right things. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be asking ourselves, if the Dallas Mavericks can somehow find some success in this first round series against the LA Clippers, who knows where this thing will end up? Because now we're looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder taking over the first seed, and then you're looking, I believe, the Denver Nuggets are now in the second seed. You're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves in the third seed. So you're now asking yourself, how far can the Mavericks take this thing if they're able to get this thing rolling and show the same consistency that we start to show in the second half of this regular season? Because you're going to look up and say you wouldn't even see yourself playing a team like the Denver Nuggets until the Western Conference Finals. So could get very interesting going forward. Obviously, I want to see how this play-in tournament works itself out, because now you're going to be looking at teams like the Lakers, the Warriors, the Kings, the Pelicans. Some of these teams are now going to find themselves working themselves into this mix of who's going to be facing off against the Timberwolves or the Thunder or the Nuggets in the first round. It's going to be very interesting to see, and I'm excited. But at the end of the day, I'm just so glad the Dallas Mavericks are not going to be in this play-in tournament, because at the end of the day, you never know. Fluke injuries, one bad shot, one bad quarter can end your season or put you in a position to where you're very close to your season being over. So the Dallas Mavericks are not going to have to worry about that. So let's just enjoy some playoff basketball in Dallas. Unfortunately, we already know we missed it last year, and all these pundits, the national media, which now all of a sudden they're piling on the Dallas Mavericks have some potential, they can do some things. But prior to the season, it was all about Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. They're not a duo that can work together, and we have seen that is completely false. But at the end of the day, we're not looking for credit from national media. At the end of the day, these guys can go out there, write their own story, and if the Dallas Mavericks can make some magic happen this year, we're going to have a whole lot to be excited about and to talk about going into the future. So I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. The Dallas Mavericks will be facing off against the LA Clippers on the 21st. And I believe the time of the game is now kind of up in limbo. It's not, obviously nothing's figured out yet to be determined. So, but I believe it will be probably one of the later games, I believe, on that day. So we'll see exactly what is going on with the Dallas Mavericks. But going into it also, I want you guys to go ahead and follow the social media. I Talk Game 247 on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, whatever it is. Go ahead. I want to start throwing in people's opinions, you guys' thoughts, opinions, and just questions into these videos towards the end of every video, because that way I want to keep you guys involved, interacting, and all that good stuff. So go ahead and follow that page on Twitter, formerly known as formerly known as Twitter, and at me with your questions, your thoughts, your opinions, and I will throw you guys' thoughts and questions and opinions into these videos and answer them myself, and just my own personal thoughts and opinions on what you're bringing to the table. So I appreciate you guys once again for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. You guys are amazing. We have some playoff basketball back in Dallas. Let's be excited about that. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.